Malive is a learning support system that enables instructors to capture real-time individual contributions and participation in class. So those who have raised their hand will be able to see their profile at the top of the screen. The instructor is then able to select one of the students, where their profile will be moved to the left-hand side and the student is given an opportunity to answer the question. Once the student has answered the question, the instructor immediately is able to assess how well the student has contributed using a very user-friendly rubrics. Once that is done, the data would be captured at the back end, and this process repeats and the question could be posed to other students in the class. Not only that, this Malive learning support system enables everyone in the class to do a voting for an open-ended question. For example, it could be a true or false question, and by doing so, students are able to answer the question and the statistical outcome could be flashed out in the screen for the instructor later on to discuss that with the class of why some of them have selected a true answer versus a false answer. So Malive learning support system enables not only monitoring individual students' participation, but in addition to that, it also engages everyone in the class from a group or class setting to participate and be engaged in the learning process. Currently, the key challenge in a traditional classroom, especially when instructors are conducting active, experiential, team-based or flipped classroom learning, is that there isn't any learning support system which enables them to capture real-time participation and contributions by students. Perhaps, if they are lucky, instructors could use teaching assistants when available to objectively grade and observe and monitor and capture students' contribution in class. But this may not be always the case because not all instructors would be able to get a teaching assistant in order for them to facilitate this. As such, it becomes a challenging task for instructors to merely monitor individual contributions real-time in class by students. Thus, this becomes a current gap which does not allow instructors to effectively and objectively monitor students' participation in class. Furthermore, because of the ratio size of instructor to students, which is usually 1:40, that makes it even more challenging for instructors to merely know each and everyone's contributions. That is to say, how well each student is contributing in terms of quality and how well their contribution is in line to what they are required to present. Perhaps the above two challenges hinders instructors not to perform their task at hand of objectively measuring students' participation and contribution. The value proposition of this Malive learning support system can be seen in two aspects. Firstly, this Malive learning support system enables instructors to capture real-time contributions and participation in class. That is so important because there's an objective measuring support system that allows instructors to capture real-time contributions. This also allows students to know clearly and reassure them that their contributions are being acknowledged and monitored as well as being objectively assessed. Secondly, Malive learning support system engages the entire class and making them do a class discussion based on a collective response from the class. For example, it could be an open-ended true or false question that is being asked to the class, and based on their response, the instructor would be able to do a class discussion of understanding why some of them have said true and some of them have said false, and what is the rational justification reasons behind it. As such, we could see very clearly the value proposition of this Malive learning support system enables the instructors, firstly, to monitor, capture real-time individual contributions by students and to engage the students critically based on their inputs and able to facilitate a class discussion within a real-time context.
Okay, the positive experience that I encountered was actually how the new technology injected into the class made it more engaging for us to speak up, and to also realize that it was controlled and our answers were like marked on the spot. It actually gave us motivation to speak up more. So that's the positive experience that I encountered. I feel that it actually motivates me to speak up more, because in the past when we speak in class, it's about getting the attention of the professor. As long as the professor knows your name, then you will be able to do well in your participation mark. So that 20% is usually not so much of a control with the professor and the students. So when this real-time assessment actually gives us control of our own education, as well as gives the professor a control of how we are assessed. And we are also able to know that it's assessed in the right way, and if we have any doubts about it, there's always like room to ask the professor about it. It's no longer about the quantity of the answers, it's more of the quality of answers. So we tend to speak up more on the quality part, and so we also listen to the different perspectives that are brought forward and go beyond our boundaries to talk lesser with stuff that's not very deep. We want to talk more deep sense of the topic that's discussed. And we also tend to prepare more outside of class, because we want to look knowledgeable in class. We don't want to actually feel that our answers are off the surface level. And since our participation marks are based on the quality now, we also tend to speak of deeper. It's about the level of quality answers that's given. It's no longer about the quantity again. With the new technology that assesses us on real-time basis, it actually makes us want to prepare more for the lesson. So it's like in the past, when we are given a topic, we just study based on that topic and the video. Like we just watch the video, we don't actually go research more on it. But this actually makes us, even in class and outside class, research more on the topic. So when something is talking in class immediately, we can also talk more deeper sense.
I think mAlive is a very simple system to use. All we have to do is press the raise hand button and we are able to make our contributions. And at the same time, it's also a very interesting concept. So if we have questions that we want to ask in class, actually you can turn it into a poll and we can see the answers in real time. I think it's a good form of acknowledgement of your contributions because it is objectively assessed, and at the same time it also facilitates the conversation and discussion going on. So instead of people talking over each other, we can sort of queue up to answer the questions by pressing the raise hand button, so that everybody has an equal chance of contribution.
I would also say that, for example, especially for the quiet people, because as I experienced as an exchange student here, the Asian culture is more quietly. Not everyone wants to participate, and I think mAlive kind of helps them actually to kind of raise a voice and also to contribute. If my contributions, which I do, are quality and which are acknowledged, then I think it kind of motivates it all. As I experienced kind of in a few sessions where we used mAlive, we saw kind of a higher motivation to contribute, because everyone thought, okay, I might be acknowledged, my pictures going up, it's a bit psychology involved as well. So I think, yeah, definitely all these tools combined together, and that in the end our contribution is acknowledged, definitely makes us use the system even more.
I think instead of talking over each other, we actually have more time to think through the points that we want to say, and when we are ready, we can raise our hand, and that makes it much easier for us to contribute. And of course, the acknowledgement part, knowing that you are objectively assessed at every point of time, makes you more motivated to answer or contribute in class.
I think to answer this question, we kind of have to look at it from two perspectives. On the one hand is the individual one. So kind of from an individual perspective, I would say you kind of tend to make more qualitative answers. So you kind of think more through it, kind of don't do these short answers where you only look at quantity, at the quantity, but more quality-wise. But also in terms of the whole classroom, it's more it leverage kind of a better learning environment. So because if we recognize other students who participate well, it kind of leverage us as well. And we think, okay, we have to participate even more. And I think this combination kind of innovates and also innovates our critical thinking.
Sometimes we need our friends to get the discussion rolling, because we are able, after that, then we are able to add on or to counter their points. So mAlive allows us to have a little bit more time to think through our answers and organize our thoughts, because there are times where we are unable to begin the discussion, but instead we can add on to somebody else's. So instead of rushing to raise our hands, we are actually organizing our thoughts and our thought process in order to facilitate the discussion.
Some positive experiences would be very motivated to speak up when I know that there are other students that would want to speak up as well. So for example, when there are 5 people that have already raised their hands, I would feel that there's a lesser barrier for me to want to raise my hand to contribute as well. I think that it is good, primarily because I've had previous experiences in other lessons where professors generally grade based on an impression. So there was once I was in a lesson and a professor told us that, oh, how we'll grade you for class participation is basically if I remember your name at the end of the whole semester, which is pretty vague because how many names can a professor really remember in that 13 weeks, you see? So being objectively accessed at that point of time when I speak up, I feel would give me a greater reassurance that my contributions have really been taken note of during the lessons. I think I'll answer the question in the 2 parts. Okay, so the first one is participate more actively, right? I think it helps maybe not only me participate more actively, but I realized the difference in my quieter peers. When, okay, so I'm not a shy person and I don't have any issues with raising my hand, but I have a few peers who are more reserved, so they find it really difficult or really fearful to put up their hands and have the professor call on them. So I think for them as well as myself, Kumaran was actually a good platform for them to reduce this barrier for them to speak up. So they found it much easier to volunteer, and this really brings down that barrier to that initial speaking up during lessons. And I think after that they got used to it, you know, and they realized that, oh, speaking up during lessons and saying your opinions is actually not so difficult after all. So it's really that raising hand, that initial barrier that's the issue, which I think mAlive is effectively solving at this current moment. mAlive has enhanced my critical thinking skills when you know that the professor may call on you even though you have not raised your hand. Because if there are 5 people that always raise their hands, right? I think the professor would most likely call on another person that hasn't, and he has that full range of pictures and students he can choose from, right? So it becomes easier for him to say, oh, there's this student that hasn't spoken up, so maybe he's too shy and I want to give him a push, a helping hand, right? And he can call me, and I think everybody knows this. So I think that it helps with your critical thinking skills because you can no longer sit back and relax during lessons and say that, oh, if I don't participate, the professor will not call on me, right? And it really forces you to think about the questions and be prepared to answer whether you raise your hand or not.
For me, I feel that mAlive adds an element of fun and competitiveness to class participation. So, because we have to be on our toes and click the button as fast as possible so that our faces will go onto the screen. So for me, I'll just be kept on my toes and I will be more active in trying to get class participation.
For me, myself, I think it's a really interesting concept, especially to our generation. So we are the millennials and we grew up with technology. So by implementing and incorporating technology into our education system, I think it's a very engaging element in which we enjoy and feel familiar with. So it encourages me to participate more in class.
I'm a more quieter student in class, so I feel that mAlive actually makes it more fair for people like me because there will always be more outgoing students in class, and sometimes I feel that class participation isn't graded as fairly as I would like, because if they speak more, the impression on them is better, like the prof has a better impression of them than me who only participate maybe a few times over the semester. So maybe with this, I feel that class participation will be more fair.
I think it's important that we know that we are assessed based on our quality of our questions, because in some of the classes, some professors actually grade on the quantity as compared to quality. So through mAlive, it reduces the frequency of nonsensical questions or students just asking for the sake of asking. So by reducing that, I think it makes the whole class more productive and conducive for us to learn more, rather than just listening to questions that probably we already know or can be found on Google. So I think that's not what a class is supposed to be like. It's something that we can learn out from normal classrooms or like just Google per se.
Because Kumaran adds an element of fun to the whole class participation thing, I am naturally more engaged in class, and I will tend to listen more to what my classmates have to say and maybe offer a different perspective on their answers.
How mAlive work is when you answer a certain question, your face and your name will be shown on the screen. So I guess it is easier for prof to recognize you and appreciate you for your answers. So for me, I have a Chinese name and sometimes it is difficult. I understand it's difficult for a professor to remember my name. So through the use of mAlive, professor can appreciate students more easily, and I think this is what encourages me or like other students to use this mAlive as well.
Because we are being assessed in real time, he has like a rubrics to assess us. So I will want to be graded higher, and I will tend to think through my answers more carefully to offer more quality answers.
Similarly, I think it is how it enhances our critical thinking is through by making us answer at a short period of time and to give insightful questions or answers rather than just asking for the sake of asking. So I think it makes us think more critically and faster.
mAlive was actually really fun because when you actually digitally press and raise your hand on mAlive, everybody can see your face and it's easier for the prof to kind of pick you. Compared to usually when you raise your hand in class, there might be a chance the prof doesn't see you, so it turns out to be kind of embarrassing. So the first time I used mAlive, I was just surprised at how easy it was for the prof to pick someone out from the class and to ask someone to answer a question. And I think the second positive experience would be that mAlive is actually very fun. It's like kind of monotonous for a class if you it's the same thing all the time. Everybody just raises their hand, they answer questions. But with mAlive, there's a bit of a gamification factor into it, and I just find it very interesting and a very new and digital way to introduce class participation into a normal class setting. So it's fun. I believe it's a very good addition, because I believe that for education, if you have formative assessments, ongoing formative assessments, so that teachers can really assess the class in real time, you're able to really see the students' weaknesses and their strengths, and the teacher is able to give more relevant feedback to the student. So I think that's something that's really lacking in the system right now for NTU, because the teachers are not really able to give real-time relevant feedback to the students, and the students are not able to change. And I think with mAlive, the professor did once tell us when he was elaborating about mAlive that there's a lot of data analytics going on behind the scenes. And I think that's really good, because with data analytics, you're better able to kind of differentiate, are students better at this topic? Are they answering questions more for this topic rather than the topic? And it all gives you a better understanding of students' strengths and weaknesses when it comes to certain topics in school. And so I think mAlive, honestly, at this point of time, is a very good addition for NTU to become smarter, more futuristic, and better user of data analytics, which is one of their strengths. For one, I think actually having your face seen and for the whole class to be able to see your face and your name out on the board, it gives you a sense of a stake in answering a question, because everybody can actually see you. And then when the prof picks you, there's also a sense of acknowledgement, of recognition. So I think it boosts a student's morale in a sense of the word when a prof picks you, because you believe that you are now the center of attention and that you really have to answer the question to the best of your ability, especially since there's an ongoing assessment going on in real time. So you really have to be at the top of your game to participate more actively in class, to be heard, and to be chosen by the prof. One thing that really differs from mAlive and a normal classroom setting is that in a normal classroom setting, you just raise your hand. And when you raise your hand, there's no ongoing assessment going on from the professor or anything. So what you answer is just from the top of your head. So you just answer anything, and then there's not really any repercussions, because most probably the prof also won't be able to really remember what you said, and he's not able to assess you on what you said. But for mAlive, it's different, because when you digitally raise your hand, the prof is picking you and assessing you real time based on what you say at that point of time. So in the end, it gives you there's certain consequences to answering a question badly or a bit haphazardly, I would say. So I think that mAlive really fosters your critical thinking experience, because you have to think better. You have to really phrase your answers in a better way, a more understandable way for the prof and the class as a whole. And in that sense, it's a full package. You can't just think haphazardly and say what you want at any point of time. You think properly and you say clearly your answer to a question, and the prof assesses you then and there. Yeah.